Hello, everyone. I'm Harvey Brownstone, and today's guest is a veteran actress whose film career began at the age of 8 when she appeared in The Night of the Hunter and The Ten Commandments. She is most fondly remembered for her role as Cissy in the long-running classic TV show Family Affair. Her film appearances include Sweet November, The Princess Diaries, and Mom, Murder, and Me. She's guest starred in dozens of TV shows going all the way back to Our Miss Brooks and Father Knows Best, and including such memorable shows as The Big Valley, Matlock, and Nash Bridges. On stage, she starred in highly acclaimed productions of My Fair Lady, Sunday in New York, The Glass Menagerie, Voice of the Turtle, A Midsummer Night's Dream, and The Trojan Women. She's a popular voiceover artist and created many iconic voices, including Pepper in the Chuck Norris Karate Commandos TV series and Firestar in the Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends TV show. She's also one of the most sought-after audiobook narrators, and so far she's recorded more than 80 audiobooks, and she's won 6 prestigious Audie Awards. If that weren't enough, she's written 5 best-selling books: The Family Affair Cookbook, Surviving Cissy, My Family Affair of Life in Hollywood, ExChild Stars, Where Are They Now?, Holiday Recipes for a Family Affair, and The Family Affair Scrapbook. I'm delighted to welcome the wonderful Kathy Garver to our show. Kathy, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Gee, I'd like to meet that girl. When does she ever sleep?
Yeah, you tell me.
She's so exhausted at the end of the day, her head hits the pillow and she's out for 8 hours.
Kathy, when I was preparing for this interview, I was amazed at your incredible versatility as a performer. You started singing and dancing at the age of 3. By the time you were in Family Affair, you had already appeared in over 60 television shows, 40 commercials, and 8 feature films. You've conquered every genre on the stage, and you're a superstar in the world of voiceover, audio narration, and dubbing. Is there anything you can't do?
I can't sail. I've tried it, but one time I got hit with the boom. And so I said, well, maybe sailing isn't my really good thing. But in the entertainment field, I actually have covered most of the bases, as well as being a producer. So yeah, I'm a Sagittarian. And so that makes us a little bit scattered, but at the same token, we like to try everything. And also as an actor, I don't know if you've ever been an actor, Harvey. You're a wonderful host, but I don't know if you've ever acted.
No.
Well, it's not the most reliable business career to have. And my dear sweet mother, who is not a stage mother, thank goodness, and said, well, if you're going to be an actor, when you go to college, maybe you should major in something a little bit more reliable, than acting. And I had been acting all my life, and I guess I knew how to do that. So I majored in speech with a minor in psychology. So aren't you proud of me, Mother? Because
who would not be proud of you? And I'm interested. You said that your parents were not the typical stage parents, and I'm very happy to know that they did not steal your money.
Which is a rarity many times when you are a child star. And my ExChild Star book, I went through and kind of decided who was a success and why, and what happened to them later. What are they doing now? And majority of the ones that weren't as successful as actors or even in another realm was because of the parents, and the parents stealing their money or saying, I'm your manager. And parents do have a big role, and it does take a lot of time, but then they wouldn't give the money back, to the kids. So that was too bad. My parents dutifully wrote down everything. I still have piles of things in the garage. I saw something from 1955. It must have been from a Holocon, type of thing. Not me, because I'm only 39, but from 1955, from a canceled check. She kept every single thing. She kept a record of things with a handwritten. And so she was very, very responsible.
I think your next book should be How to Be a Stage Mother, but Not a Stage Mother.
Ah, yes. Exactly.
I don't think there's a book out there for parents of child stars, and you're the one to write it.
That's very interesting. I'll give you 10% of that, Harvey.
Now
but, it's true, because you want to let everybody know that you have the most adorable and wonderful and handsome child in the world and talented. But you can't go that step further to dictate and control every part of their lives. And that leads to trouble. And that leads, unfortunately, to a lot of drug addiction, when the cute little kid is in that awkward stage and no one's hiring him or her.
Well, going back to your childhood, your experience in the Ten Commandments is really amazing because you started out as an extra, but Cecil B. DeMille noticed you and wrote 2 scenes for you as Rachel, the slave girl. You were only 8 years old at the time, but do you remember much about it, Kathy?
Oh, I do, because at that age, I think what you soak in are all the sounds and the what's going on around you. And I did that vociferously. I remember all of the fabric of the gowns and robes that we wore and the cold makeup that they put on. I remember the grandiosity of Charlton Heston as Moses. How are you? With his deep voice and the rough hewn paper mache mountain that I sat on all the water descending when we went through the Red Sea. Yep. Yes, I do. My husband always says, he said, Kathy, just do the bottom line. I have a tendency to tell the whole story. And he said, just do the bottom line.
Listen, I could listen to you talk forever. And then you worked with Fred Astaire in a 4-part episode of Dr. Kildare. Can you share some memories of your time with him?
He was so charming and so nice. And when we weren't working actually in the scene, we'd sit and chat. And here I was, just maybe a 21-year-old girl. And he had so many stories to tell. And he was so kind. I was thinking to talk with me, and because I loved him. I watched all his dances and his fabulous musicals, and I thought he was terrific.
You had a recurring role as Monica Robinson on the Patty Duke Show, which I loved. I understand that you and Patty Duke were good friends, and she even wrote the foreword to your book, Surviving Cissy. Can you tell us a little bit about her?
Patty was great. And I learned a lot from her, even on the Patty Duke Show. She was very professional. She wanted things to go quickly. And I was honored to do the audiobook of her last book, which was In the Presence of Greatness, which was written by Bill Jankowski. And he conducted hours and hours of interviews. But it was so strange as I was doing the audio, and I really felt her spirit like right in me. And there are parts of the book that are in quotes that are her voice. And it was like I was saying her voice. It makes me sound a little crazy, but I do voiceovers, so you have to be a little schizophrenic to do voiceovers, I think, because all of a sudden you're so many different characters, you don't know who you are. So, but I felt her spirit. And then just 3 weeks, I think it was 3 weeks ago, I hosted a marathon for the new network Classic Reruns TV of the Patty Duke Show. And there were about 12 interstitials. And so I said what was going on with, that particular episode, introduced the episode, and then gave some anecdotes as we went along. But she was terrific.
I hope that all of our viewers will watch my interview with William Jankowski, who co-wrote In the Presence of Greatness with Patty Duke. And I thank you so much, Kathy, for mentioning that.
Yes, he adored Patty, but then had a sense of her entirety. And I'll tell you one little story. I had a talk show called Backstage with Barry and Kathy, and Patty was doing Madame Morrible, and we went up. And Barry is so talented in many ways, but he had made replicas of the Wizard of Oz ruby slippers. And since she was doing Wicked, we thought, oh, well, we'll bring the ruby slippers and show them to her. Well, she just thought that was just the neatest thing in the world. And don't you know, Barry went and made her a pair of ruby slippers, size 4. I mean, she's the only person I've ever met in my life that wore a size 4 slippers. But anyway.
She was amazing.
Yeah.
Now, so many child stars ended up having huge emotional problems and even serious drug and alcohol addictions. Both of your child co-stars on Family Affair had serious addictions, and poor Anissa Jones died of a drug overdose at the age of 18. But you never fell into that trap. Why do you think you were able to avoid those problems?
Because I'm so crazy myself. I mean, Tommy Boyce and Bobby Hart, I'll never forget it. They were singers and songwriters, and they wrote the Monkees theme songs in the last train to Clarkville. And we were in New York, and we were walking along the street, and they were smoking marijuana. I'd never smoked marijuana. And so I did one thing and I passed out. I just can't physically take drugs. It just alters my reality so much. And as I say, I am sensitive enough to everything. I don't need anything to enhance it, except maybe a glass of Chardonnay at night, which I really enjoy.
But the emotional problems that led to drug addiction, when I read your book, I got the feeling that the reason you avoided that was because you actually had a normal teenage life.
Yes. I think that one of the problems with the child actors is that once they are not in the limelight and they don't have their PR person and their agents and makeup people and wardrobe people and putting them together, then, and they lose the series, then they are too well known for their particular character, but they reach a real awkward age at like 14 or 15, and they find themselves, they can't get a job. It leads to depression. And this was one part of the thing with Anissa Jones, but the poor thing, because they had her in the little dress carrying around the doll when she was 14 years old. And so she finally, she put away that doll, and she didn't want to be in show business anymore. And even though she went out for The Exorcist and she turned that down, but she got in with the wrong group, and she found a peer group, and they got on drugs. And that also just happens just from depression. And the child goes back to regular school, and it finds such a need to make connections and with their own people and their own age group, and it was very difficult. I was helped, I think, because when I was 14 and I had done all those things as a child actor, we moved to San Bernardino, California, which is about an hour from Hollywood, but that hour is filled once you get there with normalcy and some rural farm type things. And that helped. I did have my clique, and we did drink beer, but nobody really took drugs then except for one person in our thing. So I was saved by being a cheerleader and studying hard and enjoying my time with my friends. And so I think I was saved. So when I went back to UCLA, and then I was in a sorority, and so people just we weren't doing drugs back then.
Now, I want to mention here, you've already mentioned it, but I want to focus on the fact that you co-authored a wonderful book called ExChild Stars, Where Are They Now? What made you decide to write that book?
Well, actually, my co-author, Fred Asher, suggested it to me. And I said, yes, I think I have a lot to say about that. He was a fan per se, so he saw it from the fan perspective. I saw it from the actual experience of being an ex-child star. And then I put my dabble of psychology in from college to really kind of find out why, these ex-child stars, some, like Ron Howard went on and did great things, and some unfortunately committed suicide or overdosed.
Do you think social media has made it harder for child stars today than when you were a kid?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because here you are, and again, you're like 13, 14, and you have, 100, 200,000, however many social media. And you say, oh, I think I'm going to wear a green sweater today. Oh my God, did you see her with that green sweater on? She just looked awful. It made her hair look yellow, and her face was all pale. And God, did you see she had a pimple? Well, how do you think that affects the poor child and the poor tweener and the young teenager trying to establish their identity? It really hurts their identity, and say, oh, well, should I have a tattoo, or let me get in with this crowd? Is that what they're doing? Will I be accepted that way? So because you have such a wider audience, we were a lot more protected, even though there was, whisperings that this was going on and that was going on. But basically, they protected the child stars in my era.
I know that you auditioned for the role of Gidget. So I have to ask you, if you had to choose between playing Gidget or Cissy on Family Affair, which role would you have chosen?
Oh, that's such an interesting question. No one has ever asked that. I would say for the longevity, I would pick Family Affair. But for the fun, I really wanted to be Gidget. And I think I was a perfect Gidget. I am like 5'1", and
And you're bubbly and you're effervescent and you're full of life and you have that joie de vivre. But for the longevity, I was hoping you'd say Sissy.
Right. Yeah. Because it was an iconic role. And there were a couple like remakes of Gidget or sequels, and it wasn't quite the same thing. But I really respect Family Affair. It didn't get like all of the hoopla of maybe the Brady Bunch or the Partridge Family or the Monkeys, which was only on, or the Munsters even a couple of years, because it was a dear show, an emotional show. But I tell you, more people watched Family Affair and watched the reruns than any of those other shows.
Well, you know why? I think that is because those other shows are quite dated. I mean, let's be honest, there really aren't any kids like Gidget anymore. It's very dated. Same with Patty Duke. Those kinds of teenagers are very locked into a kind of Pleasantville world. But the Family Affair stories were all about enduring love and support and healing. There was a healing nature to it that is classic. It's timeless. So I think you did right to go to be Sissy.
Well, thank you. And when we were filming it, that is what the producers wanted. I went up to maybe in the third year. I said, well, I'd like to wear some mini skirts. Do you see all of that? And I want to be a little bit more hip. And they said, no. And it was like the skirts to mid-knee or whatever. You look at where we lived, you could walk into that today and have it feel modern. And then the stories themselves followed such a classic format. So they would start, Ed Hartman, who is a creator producer, and it was just fabulous. I liked him so much. And he said, this is the classic thing. Just picture a tree, a palm tree. It says you start out at the base, you have a problem, you climb up the tree, you sit at the top of the tree, you see the view, and you slide down. So it's like, you start with a problem for the show. What are you going to do? You say, well, we could try this, we could try that. Let's ask Mr. French. Let's get Uncle Bill involved. You get there. Oh, that's what we should do. And then there's a little moral and denouement, and off they go.
Was there any part of the Sissy character that was the real Kathy Garver?
Oh, yeah. Lots. I personally, as an actor, think that you can't do any part unless you have some of you in there, because who else are you going to do? I'm not going to be Harvey playing, it's Sissy, or, a dancer. Do you dance? But I'm going to use my own emotions, I do have a joie de vivre. I love to be alive. I use that, my spirit. If I'm playing a person that doesn't have a lot of spirit, I just lost this commercial. I was so mad because they said, okay, they want somebody deadpan. And I said, oh, okay. So I went on the interview. I went on the callback. I went on the check of veil. And then they chose somebody else. And then I thought, well, when they say deadpan, they don't mean dead spirit. They just mean, wow, instead of wow. So I've learned, but anyway, yes, I there was lots of Sissy in the character, and a lot of the writers for the show based some of the stories on my likes and things and part of my personality. Of course, I didn't have that much personality when I first began, but it expanded.
Now, although Family Affair is commonly referred to as a sitcom, I always thought it was more of a drama because the children were orphans and the stories and the humor were so heartfelt and poignant and sentimental. Do you agree?
Yes, it was more like a dramedy. And I don't think, and certainly I never forgot as an actor, I was really like the kids weren't acting, they were playing themselves and they were natural, and you hit their lines and hit the line where they're supposed to go and say their lines. But it was really, and of course, Brian was, and Sebastian really had to study his script. I never forgot when I was doing all my things that we were orphans, and we were there by the grace of Uncle Bill. And the happiness that came out of some of the things that we were doing were all based on the foundation of what happened, that our parents died. And, Brian Keith was certainly a wonderful substitute, but then again, he wasn't our mom or real dad.
I want our viewers to know that Kathy Garver was instrumental in making Family Affair available on DVD with some wonderful bonus features. As one of the people who bought the box set, I want to thank you so much for doing that, Kathy.
Well, my pleasure. I saw all these other things, being done. And at that time, there wasn't anybody left per se anymore. Brian Keith was never interested in publicity. Unfortunately, Sebastian had passed away and Anissa had passed away. And so when we were getting into the DVDs, I said, well, Family Affair should be out there. So it took me a couple years, but I finally made a deal with MPI and with SAG that everybody in the show got paid, which was really nice. And then I wanted to do the features too, to make it extra special. So we had bonus features of going to the set and having panels with some of the writers and my friend Sherry Alberoni, who played my friend Sharon. So yeah, that was fun. Thank you.
You spearheaded the campaign to get Brian Keith a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame after he died. You must have loved him very much.
Oh, I did. He was a complex, interesting person. He, but so warm, and he loved kids and he loved teenagers, and he wasn't so crazy about some of the people that came onto the set, but that part of him was great. He was the hardest working, I think, actor in Hollywood, and he really did not like publicity.
But did you think he was underrated as an actor?
Yes, probably. But the thing is, he wasn't working for glory or awards or, accolades. I mean, he'd be working for money, but all of that other stuff, he was a Marine, and he didn't want all this hoopla of Hollywood. He was a really down to earth, very down to earth, say it like it is, say what he means kind of person.
But it was such a tragedy that Brian Keith committed suicide. You must have been horribly upset by that.
Well, yes. And his daughter had committed suicide about 3 months beforehand. And and I knew he had cancer, and he did not have long to live. And so, I am not the one to judge how people leave their lives. He was under a great deal of pain. Plus, he was Catholic. And now there have been a couple of stories that he went to the priest and said, I am really, I'm really in pain and I really can't be here anymore. And so I think in a way he got forgiveness, but he was in pain and
he wanted to go.
He wanted to go.
Well, Family Affair had some great guest stars, including Joan Blondell, Ann Sothern, Myrna Loy, Ida Lupino, Jackie Coogan. Do you have a favorite guest star?
I liked Michael Blodgett. Michael Blodgett was this very handsome guy, and I was, young woman, and I thought that he was very cute. And the story kind of was the same thing as what was happening in real life. I said, yeah, I would like to go out with this fellow. And it was, but we never did. And in the story, it turns out he was married. And in real life, I think was married as well. But they were all great. In my newest book, I have all the notable guest stars with pictures of them and little bios, which was so much fun to research. I found out a lot of things that I didn't know about some of them. I knew about Michael, however, didn't know about him.
That's the Family Affair scrapbook that we're going to be talking about in a few minutes. Brian Keith and Sebastian Cabot had very different acting styles. Brian was a method actor and Sebastian was classically trained. How would you describe your acting style?
I would say I'm a combo of both of them. I mean, I follow I went to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art in England. So I got a lot of classic, training. And then I got a master's at UCLA in theater arts, and which was, different styles of acting, but the classic way. But I am most secure when I have all my lines learned. I know exactly what's happening. I've analyzed the scene and then do the scene, and then I forget everything. And then I go moment to moment. And so I'm really a combination of both of them. And they really, just in watching them, taught me a lot.
That is the impression I got, that you actually are a fusion of both. But from the very beginning of your career, you were typecast as the good little girl. And even as an adult, you were almost always cast in wholesome roles. Did that ever bother you?
I like it. I like it a lot. I can look back at my career and I say, I am so proud of all the things that I did. And I was just about 2 weeks ago, there was this thing for Comedy Central, and I'm playing a little old lady in a wheelchair, and the stuff that comes out of her mouth, I said, I can't do this. I said, I may get upset at home and, toss out a few words here and there and again. But I said, this is, I found it offensive, and I said, and then I'm just not going to do it.
Good for you. Well, you wrote in your memoir that you never wanted to be a star. You wanted to be a working actress. Now, obviously, you became a big star because of Family Affair. Did you find a way to deal with stardom that allowed you to remain balanced and happy?
Yeah, therapist. But, I would have changed that if I were, back then. I said, well, that was silly, Kathy. Why don't you just want to work? It'd be much more fun just to be a star and make millions and millions of dollars instead of just, being successful and doing okay. So.
Well, looking at your life shortly after Family Affair, you went to London to study at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. You toured in a number of very successful stage plays. You were young and beautiful and very popular. But in your book, you wrote that you were terribly lonely, and you described a moment of despair when you were watching The Old Man and the Sea on TV. Why do you think you were so lonely, Kathy?
I think I've just always been lonely. I think I am born lonely. I am an observant person, but I keep a certain distance, I think, between people. And
Really?
Yeah.
Is you don't appear distant. You're so warm. You're so bubbly. You're so engaging. When I got to that part of the book with you watching The Old Man and the Sea, I just wanted to give you such a big hug.
Oh, well, thank you. It's because when I share energy, like with somebody like you, or I'm like at an autograph show or something, I'm talking to people, I am so lively because I'm excited to be with people, because otherwise my mind is going, says, well, no, I've got to go water the plants. How's the dog doing? Now, did I do that book? So I'm always talking to myself in a way to get things done. So it's a relief for me to be with people. And I'm not with people I've been married for 40 years and I have a son, and we still talk and we still like each other, but you're not with them 24 hours. So I think really at the essence of my personality, I'm a loner, and I can entertain myself all alone when I'm alone, and I enjoy being alone.
In 2002, there was a reboot of Family Affair, and you and Johnny Whitaker made guest appearances in the last episode that aired. Why do you think the show didn't make it?
Well, you cannot, in my estimation, replace Sebastian Cabot with Tim Curry. I mean, they are so miles apart. And Sebastian was so believable and warm and really liked the kids. Tim Curry played a caricature. And I think it's very difficult for the second cast of a popular show to get the essence. And they most likely are playing them, once removed. Well, this is what you would do. And when the kids were cute, and I'll carry around the little doll. And but I think the main thing was Tim Curry. He was too big for it. And it was, the other cast was playing it little down, especially on Gary Cole. And actually he was a pretty good revival of Brian Keith, but in my estimation, that was, it took it into a different plane. And it wasn't the dramedy so much anymore. That was, really playing for the comedy.
See, that was what I was going to ask you, if you think that they kind of missed the point, because the point of Family Affair was the enduring love between the characters. And I felt that the writers missed that point.
I agree with you. I do.
Now, in 2020, you starred in a TV show called Aunt Cissy, where you played a grown-up Cissy who was kind of like a female Uncle Bill. Did you enjoy that experience?
Oh, yes. And we're going on with it. And there, today you do like the 8 episodes in arcs. And so we're building it in that way. So people can stream it and they can also binge watch the whole thing. So it's like a prequel and a sequel to the original.
Cannot wait for that.
It's so good.
I read on your website that you're producing a documentary to commemorate the 55th anniversary of Family Affair. When will that be released?
Well, we only have about 6 more months, so we really have to get onto it. So hopefully it will come out on September 19th, which is the end of the 55th.
Oh, Kathy, would you please come back on the show to promote that? I would so love that.
Sure.
Now, Kathy, one of the really cool things about you is that you co-hosted the talk show that you mentioned with Barry Barsamian called Backstage with Barry and Kathy. And you interviewed Jane Russell, Tippi Hedren, Patty Duke, among others. I love the fact that I'm interviewing an interviewer, even though I got to tell you, it's a little intimidating.
You are doing a great job, and you are prepared, and you're handsome, and you can understand what you're saying, and you don't talk too fast. I have a tendency to talk too fast. But
if you ever want another co-host, you let me know.
Okay, you would be great.
Now, I want to read you something that you wrote in your memoir, Surviving Cissy, which I'm telling everybody, you've got to buy this book. It's such a wonderful, insightful book. But you said this: I have always believed that God or a special spirit guides us. We just have to listen and follow. Situations are presented to us and we must act on them. Kathy, you're very spiritual and you believe in destiny, don't you?
Absolutely. I do. I mean, not so much that it's predestined, but yes, I think it is. And I started doing affirmations this last year, which I really like. But I've always believed, and I think everyone has a very special spirit, and that they have to listen to that spirit. So there's so many people that are guided by outside influences, but it's just right there. And you can go anywhere, you can be anywhere, you can do anything, and you listen to yourself. And you can give yourself little, okay, I'm going to do the best interview I ever did with Harvey. And even if you put like little things in your mind and then and go with it, it will take care of itself. It comes from our subconscious.
I also sense an enormous optimism and an inner strength in you. Am I right?
Absolutely. I do. Yeah. I have my glasses usually half full. And there have been a couple times when in the last month and a half has been depressed. I said, come on, you don't be, so depressed. And it goes away. And like this morning I wake up, God, I feel so good today. And I said, I am grateful and fulfilled. And then I said, what are you grateful for? I said, I'm grateful for my family. Or in every time, you get out of bed, you say, well, I'm grateful for something. I'm grateful that I woke up. I'm grateful that I can get out of bed and not have my back hurt.
But you've got a lot to be grateful for. I mean, look at the extraordinary life and career you've had. Look at what you've accomplished besides your work in film and on TV and on the stage. You were youth chairman of the March of Dimes. You did a USO tour to the Far East visiting wounded soldiers in hospitals. Notwithstanding a very busy acting career, you got a bachelor's degree in speech and a master's degree in theater arts from UCLA, and you attended the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art in London. You're a respected teacher of voiceover, audio narration, and automated dialogue replacement. You've written 5 books. You've won 6 Audie Awards, 2 Lifetime Achievement Awards, a Golden Halo Award, and you have a star on the Palm Springs Walk of Stars. Do you get how really special you are?
No, but I get that I'm really blushing.
No, I mean it. I mean, did you hear all that?
I did. It's interesting when you say, oh my goodness, I was busy.
Yeah, it's not just that you're busy. I didn't even mention all the movies, all the TV shows, just the accomplishments. I just wonder whether you really get how incredibly talented and special and energetic you are to do all that.
Well, now you're making me think that way. Thank you, Harvey.
So whenever you feel down, you call me.
Yeah, going to, my new co-host.
Can you please tell us about Family Affair Scrapbook? This is a really special project that's brand new.
Right. Well, because it's the 55th anniversary of Family Affair this year, and I'm 39, I wanted to make a special book that would commemorate it, and that's the Family Affair Scrapbook. They also brought out my hardback Surviving Cissy in paperback to celebrate the 55th anniversary. And so it is a compilation of many photographs, of memories, notable guest stars, little trivia things. And in my estimations, it's pretty. It's so colorful. That's the turquoise cover. You open it and you say yellow and orange and blue, and the photos are so bright, and you can not even read the text and enjoy the book. But I think the text is pretty good, and you can get it on my website, which is kathygarver.com, strangely enough. And of course, it's also on Amazon. All my books are on Amazon. They're all on my website, along with my Cissy candles and other things that I have made.
I love playing the DVDs from the box set of the Family Affair series, and then watching the show while I have the scrapbook with me, because there's so many episodes you refer to in the scrapbook that I can watch and then read the little tidbits of behind the scenes information. So thank you for doing that.
Oh, yeah, it's my pleasure. My pleasure. Maybe I should do that one as an audiobook. I did the other one as audiobooks, as Surviving Cissy and Family Affair Cookbook and ExChild Stars. But since this one just came out, I didn't do it. And I have a new one coming out this year that will be TV Dinners. And that is a book that will go along with another pilot that we have done called TV Dinners, where we have classic stars come on and I cook up a little thing. So a nice kitchen setting.
That's going to be wonderful. I hope that you will come back on the show when the documentary comes out and the TV dinners. And don't forget your other new book that you're going to write, A Guide for Parents of Child Stars.
That's right. I've got to write that down now so I don't forget.
Well, Ms. Kathy Garver, it has been such an enormous pleasure celebrating your extraordinary life and career. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show.
Thank you, Harvey. It was a pleasure talking to you.
I wish you the best of luck with all your upcoming projects. And like I said, you are welcome back here anytime.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Our guest has been actress, producer, and author Kathy Garver. My name is Harvey Brownstone. Thank you to our producer, Steve Silver. Thank you all for joining us. See you next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out all the great interviews on the Harvey Brownstone Interviews YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified when new videos are posted.